G'day guys, welcome back to the off season. Today, now I will just warn you before we do get started, this is going to piss a lot of you off. So if you're not into ifs and hypotheticals and whatnot, probably best to go and watch one of the off seasons from the last couple of weeks. But today we're going to get pretty deep into some what ifs and change a bit of history and have a look at how that would have impacted certain players, certain clubs, and the NRL in general. We're going to have a look at if the Canterbury Bulldogs won in 2012 and then if they won in 2014 and if they won both. And the depth that we can go into here is insane. I'm obviously looking forward to talking about if they won in 2014 because I have got my co-host with me, my 5'8". Matty, welcome back, mate.
What's going on, Guru? Thank God they didn't win in 2014. Otherwise, I think my whole history would have changed as well.
Yeah, you'd be one tattoo down, I think, just quietly.
Oh, you know what? I was thinking about that. The reason I got this was because in 2014, I was, how old? I would have been 19, pretty sure. And like, as every 19-year-old kid, I'm like, oh, we were the cop, I'm going to get a tattoo. And like, obviously, I bitched out of it. And then when they made the grand final in 2021, I don't know. Yeah, 2021. It's just, I've suppressed that memory. I was like, we're going to get the tattoo. I'll get the tattoo if we win this time, like for sure. Like I'm 26 now, 27. And I was so optimistic that I booked the tattoo thing like before. I think it was before the prelim even. Like I was like, we're going to fucking win this year. I just had this weird confidence. Anyway, we didn't win, but so I cancelled the tattoo. But I was so spewing about it. And I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to go get it. So then I went back and got it. But you're right. If we didn't win in 2014, I would never have had that initial thought. And I still wouldn't have seen my team win at comp, so I probably would not have it.
Do you ever think back to the fact that you booked for the tattoo before the grand final, that maybe you fucked up the juju a little bit and potentially cost not only the team but South Sydney in general a premiership? Yeah,
that's why I said I booked it before the prelim, because I know very much I booked it in grand final week. I just didn't want to say it out loud.
You're a fucking dickhead. You are a dickhead, my friend. All right. We'll get to 2014 soon because we're going to really enjoy that one. But 2012 first, which is still pretty bloody interesting. Now, the Melbourne Storm, they obviously won that grand final 14-4 over the Canterbury Bulldogs. That game is, of course, well, for me, I remember it for the pass of Cooper Cronk through to Billy Slater, one of my favourite players of all time. Yep. We know that Matty, he remembers it for one of the great winger performances of all time, which shout out to a lot of you guys who said in the comments they knew exactly what you were talking about, Matty. So credit to them. You've stumped me on that one. Absolutely pretzeled me.
I mean, there's a first time for everything, isn't there? So I'm glad.
I'm sure I won't be the last, but enjoy the first, no doubt about it. The Melbourne Storm win that premiership. Now we're going to say, what if it went the other way? So what if it fell the way of the Canterbury Bulldogs? And I guess for me, the first thing that comes to mind when I had a look at this team list, I read it out to you quickly. Fullback Benny Barber, Sam Perrott on one wing, Jono Wright on the other side, Josh Morris in the centres with Crimson Inu, Josh Reynolds at 6, Chris Keating wearing jersey 7. Great forward pack here. Aidan Tolman, Mick Ennis, Sam Cassiano. The back row, Frank Pritchard and Josh Jackson. And then we've got Greg Eastwood wearing jersey 13. The bench. Matty, what about this fucking bench? James Graham, Dale Finucane, Corey Payne, David Stagg. This side was a tremendous side. They were probably a little bit light in certain positions. Obviously, the halves, you had Chris Keating, who a good, well-established footballer. Probably when you think of premiership-winning halves, for me, it'd probably be hard to imagine Chris Keating as a premiership-winning 7. And Josh Reynolds, who we all love Grub. He's gone on to achieve a lot of things, but you got to remember, before the 2012 season, he'd played a grand total of 10 games of football, and I think he'd played 5-8 in one of those games. So he'd played mostly in the 9 jersey for Canterbury. So coming into this season with those two guys in your halves was pretty bloody incredible. So for me, when I look at the spine, probably the standout guy there is Benny Barber. And, of course, he won the Dally M medal that year. Not many guys have gone Dally M into premiership. Not many guys have gone Dally M into premiership into Clive. And, Matty, when I have a look through that side and, grand finals are obviously won in big moments. And, Ben Barber almost came up with a moment that did win this game for the Canterbury Bulldogs. I imagine he would have been the red-hot favourite to take home the Clive in this game. And fuck, the career of Benny Barber, he obviously went on to win another premiership, but if he was one of, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, it'd be Jonathan Thurston and maybe one or two others that have gone Dally Medal into Clive Churchill in the same year. Would have been pretty fucking incredible, wouldn't it?
It's crazy with Benny Barber because, like, even though he had such a stagnated career because of what happened off the field, he still managed to achieve so much on the field. And I have had people argue to me, and it's not a terrible argument. Like, obviously 2012, I don't think I agree with it, but obviously 2012 was unbelievable. But a few people have said to me that Benny Barber was just as good for the Sharkies in 2016. Obviously, he didn't do, the length of the field magic shit, but he was an integral part, like a very integral part of that 2016 Sharks team. So he was just unbelievable. It's a shame that his off-field kind of screwed up his on-field a little bit. But, like, because we're going to talk about 2014 later. He was at the Broncos in 2014 after this crazy year in 2012. And I remember being at school and I didn't get to enjoy it as much as I would have liked because we had a few Dogs fans at our school and it was always like it was for South's first good year in my whole life. It was the first time we made the top four. And we had Greg Inglis, and then all the Bulldogs fans loved Benny Barber. So it was like a Barber versus Inglis argument throughout school the whole year. So every time I watched the Bulldogs, I didn't enjoy it, which I regret, because I hated the sight of Bulldogs and Benny Barber going well because I was jealous of how good he was playing. So I actually do regret that a lot, and I find myself watching Benny Barber's highlights on YouTube to try and catch up because obviously being a dumb, immature kid, I was such a hater. But you go back, he was a human highlight reel that year. It was unbelievable. And I remember in 2011, I think he might have come off the bench a couple of times and like he might have scored 4 in a game. Like he done some crazy shit in 2011 as well. And I remember he always used to do the X.
I was just about to say, me and my mates, when we were in year 11 and 12, we started our touch footy team down at Queen's Park, and off the back of that, we were the X Factors. It lasted for about 10 years, solely off the back of how exciting Benny Barber was when he came off the bench in the early days and was chucking that up. He was phenomenal early. He was a freak. What was that? Was that 2010?
Yeah, so I'm
2010.
looking it up now. So it was 2010. So the first, from round 1 to round 10, he played on the bench, then he played halfback, then he played bench, then he played a bit of 5'8", then he played bench, then he played centre. So then 2011, he went to fullback. And 2011, look at 2011. He scored more tries in 2011 than 2012.
Crazy.
He had a crazy good year that year as well. He was such a good player, Benny Barber.
And if you go back and have a look, as you said, Matty, there was that period in 2010 when he was coming off the bench and he was carving up. There's a game against the Roosters in round 3 where he comes off the bench. He scores 3 tries and Canterbury win this game 60-14. And Benny, he stars off the bench. Keep in mind, this is the same Roosters team that 5 months later were playing in the Grand Final against the Dragons, obviously the Todd Carney year and whatnot. So pretty crazy. Obviously that season, Luke Patton starts at fullback, but you had this Ben Barber coming off the bench who was just unbelievable. Absolute freak. Shout out to the lock forward in that game for the Canterbury Bulldogs. I never realised he played lock at all. Blake Green.
Oh, there you go.
The Kit King. Absolute weapon. So Ben Barber, I mean, if you give him another premiership and if he potentially wins a Clive, which I reckon he would have been a really good shot to win it, just when you have a look through the rest of that squad, that's one career that gets turned on its head all of a sudden and the conversation's very different.
Even if he didn't win the Clive, because obviously it's so hard to pick.
Yeah.
But he was their best player that year. He was the best player in the NRL that year. And he would have been the face of that premiership. So he would have had 2 premierships in 5 years. And you're right, we would have looked at it. Like, I still look at Benny Barber as a great career because of a lot of the Shark stuff. Like, I think his career at the Sharks is criminally underrated because everyone remembers him for the Bulldogs, which is fair enough. He made crazy line breaks every fucking 6 seconds. But yeah, I think Benny, if he had another premiership to his belt, we'd be talking, well, a lot of other people would be talking a lot different about him.
And as you said, he was the best player in this team. And especially when you are talking about Clive, and you're right, it is so hard to pick. But I mean, fuck, if there was not an absolute standout, Benny gets this
100%.
8 times out of 10, I reckon.
Yep.
Other guys to talk about in this team, one that stands out for me, centre, Josh Morris. Obviously, a tremendous career, unbelievable stuff. Never actually won a premiership. Obviously arrived at the Roosters midway through 2020. They haven't won a comp since, so he didn't win one there. Never won a premiership, lost 2 grand finals. As far as guys go, the greatest guys ever to never win a premiership, Josh Morris from the mighty Kiama Knights. Have you still got that jersey down there just quietly?
Yes, right here. Hang on.
The mighty Kiama Knights, shout out to them. I noticed that Matty just happened to have one of their jerseys here the other day. One of the greats.
So yeah, someone sent it into Denon a while ago now, and it's just lived near my desk for this whole time.
Yeah, Josh Morris, obviously 325 first grade games without a premiership, 158 tries.
I sometimes forget he didn't win a premiership. It's one of those players I just assumed won one. Maybe it's because he had a twin brother who won a couple as well. But it's crazy to think, isn't it? Because if anyone deserved a premiership, it was Josh Morris.
And it's crazy also when you think he missed the Dragons premiership by 2 years. He lost 2 comps for the Canterbury Bulldogs. He arrived at Cronulla in 2019. So obviously not incredibly close to when they won that comp, but not crazy far away from it. And then he arrived at the Roosters the year after they went back-to-back. So narrowly avoided many premiership victories, Josh Morris. And 2012, I think that would probably be the one that haunts him the most. So unlucky. Another one that didn't win a comp, and, you talk about unluckiest guys ever. Inu.
Oh, he's a freak.
He's a freak. And when you have a look at how he just narrowly dodged premierships consistently, unbelievable. So 2009, he's playing for the Parramatta Eels. They go all the way to the grand final. They lose that one. He then moves to the New Zealand Warriors in 2011. They go all the way to the grand final. They lose that one. Then he joins the Canterbury Bulldogs midway through the 2012 season. They go all the way to the grand final and lose that one. And then 2014, he was at Canterbury as well. Only played until round 19, so I'm not sure what happened there. But Inu, he really gave this team a breath of fresh air when he came into the side. I remember being there for his first game at Canterbury. It was at the SFS against the Roosters. I'm going to say they won about 36-12 or something. It was a reasonably convincing win, but he kicked a couple of goals. He scored a couple of tries. He set up one as well where he went up for a bomb. He caught it and he was going over the sideline, threw it back as he was in midair. He made a big splash when he first arrived and had a tremendous career, but was just always the unluckiest guy. I think that means he lost 3 grand finals with 3 teams in 5 years or something. Something along those lines. Incredible stuff how his career played out.
So that was his second game against the Roosters.
That was his second, was it?
His first game he was called in. He was jersey number 23, so I'm pretty sure he would have been called in with an hour to play, and they played Canberra.
That's in 2012, is it?
Inu?
Yeah.
2007.
No, so sorry. I mean, when he first came over to the Canterbury Bulldogs.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he got pulled in late in jersey 21, funnily enough, against the Roosters at the SFS. So he came
you're right.
mid-season.
Sorry, my bad. Yeah, 30-12. Yep.
Came from the Warriors. He was a good player, just so unlucky. I used to love him when he was kicking goals, Matty, the smiling assassin.
The smiling, yeah. Didn't he play for New Zealand after one NRL game?
No, he played for New Zealand after, was it 1 or was it 0?
I don't know. It was
maybe
crazy.
It was 1. Yeah, I had him on the podcast years ago. When I think he was my second or third guest, and him telling the story that I can't remember if it was after 1 game or after none, and he got. It must have been after 1 first grade game. I think you're right. He played 1 first grade game, got called into the Kiwi side. He was sitting in church when he got the phone call. His phone went off. Everyone looked at him and they thought they knew what it was, so they let him answer the phone call. There was some story to it or something. But he went from first grade on the Friday night. He then played for New Zealand the next Sunday. Then he came back to Parramatta, and whoever he replaced the week before was back from injury, so he went back to reserve grade.
Wow. Jeez.
So he played first grade international. He played first grade for the Warriors. For Parramatta. Then played Kiwis, and then played for Wentworthville next Sunday.
And not just played for Kiwis. He was their fullback.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he hadn't. I don't think he'd played a stack of fullback. Well, yeah, he obviously hadn't played much first grade at all. But when he made his first grade debut, he was playing centre, and he got called in as fullback. So unbelievable. Just fucking crazy the way that his career played out. Another one that never won a premiership, but got close on a number of occasions. Mate, another guy I want to touch on, never won a premiership. He was coming off the bench for this Bulldogs teams, James Graham. We had Jacko on here the other day talking about his career and how, I think he only won one premiership or two.
At that point, he'd won one, but he'd lost I think 3 other grand finals or something.
Yeah, over in England. Then came here and lost this grand final. He was obviously in the 2014 team, which we'll talk about soon. But James Graham, I think we've all got so much respect for him. But once again, when you look back at the legacy of players, it's moments that really stand out. And a premiership winning moment, it means a lot when you look back at players, doesn't it?
I mean, there's not much between Sam Burgess and James Graham, but on these Australian shores, the difference is Sam Burgess we'll talk about 14, had that cheekbone that ironically Graham did, and that's what he's remembered for. And James Graham, I don't think anyone really considers James Graham a non-premiership winner because he obviously won for St. Helens twice. Plus he was in so many grand finals, I know, blah, blah. But you're right, I guess in Australia that was kind of the one small difference between those two.
Yeah, and it's not taking anything away from James Graham, but
no,
when you look back at the history of players, premierships do matter at the end of the day. Yeah. And he's a guy that definitely deserved one, if not two.
I always felt for him as well because even he was on Bloke recently and I was I was a metre away from him looking at him talking about the 2012 and 2014 grand finals and it still devastates him.
Yeah.
He cares so much and he's one of those players that obviously I can't speak for everyone, but there wasn't a time in my life where I didn't dislike James Graham. Yeah. I always even though he played on the other team for the Bulldogs, who I hated back in the day, I always loved James Graham just because he's just a tough cunt. Oh man, it would have been great if he could have won in 2012.
Yeah, and I only met him once with Kempy a few weeks ago. I spoke to him for 2 or 3 minutes, but the number one thing that stood out for me is that, and quite often when first graders come in here and we meet them, whatever, you look at the size and you just go, oh my God, I get why you are such a fucking handful. I look at James Graham and I sort of go, fuck, you weren't gifted with the biggest body, you weren't gifted with the biggest motor of all time.
No.
You're just tough as fucking nails and you'll just fight for every single bone imaginable. I was actually really surprised with, and I'm not saying he was small or anything, but just his size. I expected him, based on the way he played, to be a lot bigger than he was.
You're standing next to his teammates like Cassiano, Pritchard, Clemmer. He's obviously small and all them. But not only was he tough, and when it comes to top echelon of tough, he's number one at the top. But also, you listen to his podcast, The Buy Around, or listen to any of the podcasts he's been on with Bloke or whatever. He's a deep, deep thinker of the game. Yeah. And that's obviously where his ball playing ability comes from and shows why he's obviously the game's evolved. And it's funny how we talk about how the game's evolved in the last, especially since COVID with the new rules and everything. He would slip straight back in today's game and be just as good.
Yeah, for sure. He's one of those guys, I think he could slip into just about any era of rugby league ever.
Yeah.
And he had the toughness to play 40 years ago, but he had the skill set to play now and, in my opinion, in 20 years' time probably.
Yep, totally agree.
An absolute freak. You speak about how much of a deep thinker he is. As I said, I met him for about 3 or 4 minutes and him and Kempy were talking about some podcast they'd been listening to.
Yeah.
James Graham said, you got to listen to this, and he told me about it. I didn't understand what the topic was about. And from what he explained to me about the podcast, I still had no fucking idea what he was talking about. And it was like he was explaining to me the most basic thing in the world. A really, really smart fella. I think he's going to be pretty successful in the podcasting space.
I agree.
Maybe.
If you listen to him on on Saturdays or whenever it is, listen to him on Triple M a lot. He's really good there as well. And he's good. He's a good commentator, colour commentator. He's measured, but when he needs to blow off, he blows up, and he's a fantastic podcaster. So yeah, he's got it all going for him, Graham. And I'm pretty sure the Bulldogs have just got him back after the Dragons somehow sacked him. Do you remember Graham as a Dragon? No one does. It's I'm glad he's gone back to the Bulldogs.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what? It's funny. I actually ran into Cole Flanagan about a month or two ago.
Yep.
Before the news happened, and we were talking about James Graham, and he actually said to me, he's like, "Oh man, it'd be good if the Bulldogs would get him back. He's just a legend of the club." And then a couple of weeks later, he was back there. So
yeah, all makes sense.
Want him. Crazy.
Yeah, unbelievable. Now another guy, obviously James Graham, he never won an NRL premiership. Obviously won them over in the Super League. But one guy that never won a premiership full stop that he deserved it, Josh Jackson.
Yeah.
And when he retired, I spoke about this on my podcast. I think people forget that this was his debut season. So when you have a look at how good that Canterbury pack was, this was his debut season. And that grand final, that was his 12th game of first grade, Matty. He started the first 2 on the bench. From that point on, he was in the starting team in that Canterbury pack in his 12th game of first grade.
It's crazy thinking about that because when you said that just then, and when you said the Josh Reynolds thing before, I honestly, hand on heart, wouldn't have been able to guess that.
Yeah,
I thought they would have at least had a set. Like that was a pretty fresh team.
100% it was. And this is what, sort of going to bring me to my next point. I think that if this team would have won that premiership in 2012, and it's actually very similar for the 14, so we'll go through it. I think we would look back on this team as one of the better forward packs ever. Because of the way that they revolutionised the game, because their halves, once again, Chris Keating, Josh Reynolds, 2 good players. But, I mean, if you were to write me a list of all the premiership halves that have been in grand finals the last 20 years, I think Josh Reynolds and Chris Keating, respectfully to them, would be pretty far down that list, just based on achievements and player and all this sort of stuff. For them to get all the way to that grand final with the forward pack they had, ball playing the way they were, and just how tough they were. As we said, that bench, James Graham, Dale Finucane, Corey Payne, David Stagg. Obviously, Graham, Finucane, David Stagg, 3 players that we probably recognise more so. Corey Payne, he might have been the toughest motherfucker in this team, just quietly. He was a monster.
Maybe you're right about this forward. I'm just having a look at it. Like they had all the ball playing middles who were fucking huge. Like you're right. If you read that full pack out to anyone who even has a slight idea of rugby league, they would say, yeah, that's one of the better full packs. You're right. Imagine if they won those 2 grand finals. It'd be fucking insane. And speaking of players, just to add someone onto that list, that grand final was only Dale Finucane's 14th game as well.
Wow.
So that's it's half your fucking team.
And and there's other guys in this team that have got so close to premiership but never won one. Frank Pritchard, for example, he played for the Panthers in 2003, but he wasn't in their side at the end of the season for the grand final. Greg Eastwood, he was in the Broncos team in 2006, but wasn't in the team at the end that won the grand final. So it's essentially the entire back row that was a fantastic chance. Their only chance is like full-time first graders to win a comp there and didn't manage to get it done. Aiden Tolman's another one. I mean, he's another guy that's played 300 first grade games without a premiership. He did win a premiership at Melbourne Storm, but that one was stripped off officially, obviously. You can make up your own mind there, but so many guys that played so much footy. Sam Perrett's another one, 256 first grade games, didn't win a comp. It's brutal to look back on. And as I said, I think this team, this forward pack would be regarded as one of the better forward packs ever if they manage to win this grand final when you consider the rest of their team. One guy in that forward pack I want to talk about as well is Mick Ennis. Now, mate, when we spoke about 8 weeks ago, whatever it was, about who's the better hooker, Mick Ennis or Robbie Farah, I'm not sure if there's an argument in rugby league that splits people more.
I tell you, I've got one. Who's better, Josh Morris or Brett Morris? I reckon that's the best rugby league argument in the world. No one can give you an answer. No one can give you a straight answer to that.
I'd go Brett.
You'd go Brett?
Yeah.
But look at what Josh did in Origin against Inglis.
Yeah, for sure. But I would, yeah.
Anyway,
that Farah McEnnis one, I put up a post about it. I couldn't believe how many comments it got. And as I was reading the comments, it would say, "Are you fucking serious?" It's obviously, and I would have no idea where they were going. It was honestly going either way. I put up a poll from it that I think it ended up getting about 6,000 votes. It was 50-50.
Yeah. And it's so funny how, like, you got Bulldogs fans and then you got, like, Tigers and, like, Robbie Farah fans who are probably, like, the most staunchest and are going to be so stubborn towards their hooker that no matter what you say, they're not going to veer away from their opinion on that one. And fair play to them, because I'm like that with a couple of players as well. But but that argument back in the day was still one of the best.
It's crazy. And I reckon that and this is where I think if Mick Ennis would have won this game, all of a sudden he has another premiership, so he finishes with 2. But, I mean, the argument is also there that if he wins this grand final with Canterbury, he potentially never leaves Canterbury. But let's say his career plays out as it did. He goes to Cronulla, he would have 2 premierships. But I think the standout for me here is that he's one of... Well, he would actually be... And I only just thought about this, Matty.
Yeah?
If he would have won this grand final against Cameron Smith, he would have beaten Cameron Smith in 2 grand finals.
Wow.
In 5 years as a hooker. And for me, that would end the Robbie Farah Mick Ennis conversation. I think if you give him another premiership and he wins another one over Cam Smith, and we obviously, there's a bit of history here as well. Remember when Mick Ennis patted Cam Smith on the head and gave it to him a little bit, and everyone blew up deluxe, which I thought was fucking great. I love Cam Smith to bits, but if you're going to be out on the field, I think you're fair play.
And if Cam Smith laughs about it, so
yeah, exactly right.
The thing with Ennis though, and like, this isn't a criticism on anyone, but just the way that Des Hasler, coaches, he obviously, you see a different Ennis, like Sharks to Bulldogs. So I guess there would be a few more layers to the argument. Like, yes, Ennis is probably known as a Bulldog, but I will always remember him for what he did at Cronulla.
Yeah.
And I guess that adds another layer to the argument. Like, yes, if Ennis won that 2012 premiership, but like I would still remember him as the guy that won that 2016 premiership for the Sharks.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and I think a really fair argument by a lot of people is that Mick Ennis, and I think it's got a lot to do with the coaching of Des Hasler, as you said.
Yes, yeah.
We only saw that sort of skill set at the back end of his career.
Yeah.
Whereas Farah, to his credit, we saw that for 10, 15 years.
Career, yeah.
So it's an interesting one. But even Michael Ennis, like you have a look back at his career, he's another one. Like him and Craig Eastwood were in that 2006 Broncos side. He gets injured. Sean Berrigan moves to hooker and he wins a Clive Churchill medal a few months later. Like it's a real sliding doors moment. You got to remember as well, like we all look back to 2005 and we've spoken about it a few times when the Tigers played the Cowboys, two unbelievable teams. I mean, for me during that year, there was going to be no other possible grand final outside of Parramatta versus the Dragons. The whole regular season, they were the two best teams by far and away. Mick Ennis was the hooker for the Dragons that year too.
Fuck, he was too.
So he goes so close on so many occasions. Thankfully, in 2016, he gets the job done. Yeah. But yeah, I reckon if he wins this one in 2012 and he beats Cameron Smith twice at hooker at Cam Smith's peak, very, very interesting conversation. And I know as well, and obviously we've spoken about it, but, we all remember Andrew Fafita slamming that ball down, but you even hear Fafita talk about it. Michael Ennis gives him that look. Sort of says, this is on here. And like Andrew Fafita does the vast majority of the work, don't get me wrong, but even for Michael Ennis just to have the awareness in that moment, like how many of those passes do you see, those short balls to front row forwards that just go completely wrong all the time?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
All the time. Still gets it, and he gets it right in that moment.
But go back to 2015, 2016 stats. I mean, look it up yourself. But Mick Ennis, he's not at the top of the list. Obviously, you got your playmakers. He's always the number one hooker for try assists in those 2 years. And if you look back, like Harry Grant's putting up mad numbers these days, but no hooker is putting up numbers like Ennis in 2015, 2016, like for try assists.
And it's not like he was in a team that didn't have guns in the spine too. Yeah, he was playing with Jimmy Malone. He was playing with Benny Barber. Like, yeah, fucking wild. So I reckon Mick Ennis is another one that if he would have won this comp, we look back on his career very, very differently, especially.
However, if he loses 2016, it's a whole different argument as well.
Let me ask you this. If he wins this one,
do
you remember Mick Ennis as a Bulldog or a Shark?
No. If he wins...
If he won both?
Wins both?
Does the Sharks one still overlap because it was the first one?
I reckon probably Bulldogs.
Bulldogs?
Because I still think when I think of Ennis, I still think of him in that Dogs jersey.
Yeah.
But I remember Impact. I remember him that 2016 Sharks team. But yeah, if you won the 2012, I'd probably be more towards Doggies.
Crazy. All right, the last guy I want to touch on when it comes to this Bulldog side, Desi Hasler.
Yep.
This was his first season at the Canterbury Bulldogs. He'd obviously won the year before, coaching the Manly Seagulls in 2011. Moves over here, and in his first season, takes them all the way to the grand final. Now,
let's not forget though that he took over a team that was coming 9th.
Yep.
The year before, and the year before that they came 13th, and this was James Graham's first year as well, so he did the exact same thing.
Fuck, that's impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, like it's not like James Graham walked into a fucking good team.
Yeah, it's crazy to think. And you think about Des, he left, like he won in 2011 with DCE, Kieran Foran, these sort of guys.
Yeah.
He arrives at Canterbury and Josh Reynolds and Chris Keating. Like I know DC and Foz were young, but they were such skillful footballers, and Josh Reynolds and Chris Keating are completely different guys.
Well, Josh Reynolds had never played. He played one game of 5'8" in his career.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. He was also very young too. But, I mean, if your guy you're relying on, your most experienced head is Chris Keating, I mean,
that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
Des has come into a team with really his first choice 5'8" had never really played 5'8" before. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's crazy. Yeah, and you have a look at Chris Keating, his first few years, I mean, 2008, plays a handful of games. He plays the vast majority of them at halfback. Then he comes off the bench the year after. He'd played about 35 first grade games as they came into that season. Josh Reynolds had played 10. Takes them all the way to the grand final. And I think the standout for me is how Des sort of changed that team and how they ball played around the ruck and whatnot. No other team was really doing that at the time. And I think he's probably underappreciated as a coach as far as how we look back at that. But, if Des Hasler wins that would have made him the first coach to win back-to-back premierships since Wayne Bennett.
Really? I mean, yeah, true. Has anyone done it at different clubs, back-to-back at different clubs?
I don't know.
I'm gonna throw it out there and say no.
I would assume
maybe Jack
not.
Gibson did. I don't know.
I don't think Jack would have.
Yeah, right.
I don't think so. Roosters, Cronulla, Parramatta. Yeah, I don't think any of them would have been back-to-back.
Wow. Someone correct us if that's wrong.
Yeah, someone reach out. I'm trying to think if there's anyone we're missing over the last few years. I mean, at the end of the day, there's only been about 6 coaches that have won premierships in the last 10 years or 10 or 12 years.
Just on the Doggies in 2012, they were 5-5 for the first 10 rounds and sitting in 8th after round 10.
Wow.
And then after round 10, they lost 2 games the rest of the year. One of those were the grand final.
Fuck, that's impressive.
They didn't just win the comp. They didn't win the comp, but they came first. They were the minor premiers that year. So to do that after sitting in 8th after round 10, not bad.
I'll tell you what would have really helped this side, especially in that situation, 8th at round 10. You get to the Origin period. Not many of them would have gone to play Origin.
Yeah.
Vast majority of them would have been staying in this side. I think you would have had Josh Morris and you might have had Michael Ennis if that was one of the years that he played. That might have been a Robbie Farah year, though. I'm not sure. I'm just going to have a look at his Origin. What did he play? 2011, 20. He didn't play Origin that year. So I think Josh Morris, he would have been the only guy that would have gone to play Origin. So they would have kept essentially their entire squad the entire year. You obviously had...
Morris was the only one that played for the Blues that year who was from the Bulldogs.
Yeah, wow. How handy is that?
I mean, it helps, doesn't it? And yeah, there was no Queenslanders. So yeah, there you go.
Wow, incredible. So I think that we look back on the career of Des Hasler very differently, and I think it changes the whole narrative. I mean, Canterbury have spent the last 10 years telling us that it was Des Hasler's fault the club went into turmoil. Yeah. I always say, fuck, they would have won that comp. I'm sure it's a very different story all of a sudden.
100% comp in your first season. Mate.
Crazy. Which means that, and we'll talk about it soon, if he would have won the 2014, that means he would have won 3 comps in 4 years with 2 different clubs.
Far out.
Big if, I know that, don't get upset. But
he'd probably still be there, to be honest.
Yeah, and where would he sit as far as best coaches all time?
Well, he's kind of in the conversation, maybe a little bit under Bellamy and Bennett already. If he'd won those, he'd be equal with them for sure.
That would have given him 4 premierships between 2008 and 2014.
And just pulling premierships from nowhere as well. I know, he built that Manly team. When he took that over, they were a fucking shithouse.
Yep.
And he just gutted it and made it such a good team. And then Manly 2000 say 7-8 to 2013 was so fucking good. And then the Bulldogs, he pulled that out of nowhere as well. Even I know it was a lot of turbo, but even 2021, they haven't been good, Manly, for the last few years, and they made the prelims last year. So,
and I mean, you have a look at the team here that he built. Dale Finucane, he's gone on to be one of the hottest properties in rugby league.
Yep.
James Graham, we regard him as one of the greats. Josh Jackson, the Canterbury Bulldogs have been built around him for the last few years.
Just on Josh Jackson, I forgot to say.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for Josh Jackson because he played in those 2 grand finals and he was also one of the first players picked in Origin for a few years. But the 3 years he played Origin were 2015, 2016, 2017, which were wedged in between 2014 win and 2018 win.
How fucked is that?
So
and you
annoying.
know what? He's the sort of guy that Josh Jackson, he didn't have an incredible skill set, but he was tough as nails.
Yeah.
That if he just would have been in one series victory, it would have locked him in for a long time.
Yeah, definitely.
He's one of those guys that when you start to lose, you look around and go, oh, he doesn't have upside to him. Can we maybe let him go? Can we maybe upgrade there? Whereas when you're winning, he's the first one picked.
Yeah, 100%. I love Josh Jackson.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Josh Jackson.
I tell you who's a big fan of Josh Jackson? Peter Sterling. I remember Sterlo used to rave about him all the time. Like, this is well before his Origin debut. Yeah.
Fuck, he was tough when he first came.
He's just... I'm spewing he's retired, actually.
Is he a Mudgee boy?
Yeah, I'm going to say that, yeah.
Mudgee, yeah, I think he's from Mudgee. Fuck, he was tough. And yeah, thankfully, the Canterbury Bulldogs, they've got him on board in some degree as well. But yeah, Des Hasler, I think we'd look back on his career very differently.
Yep.
Now, from Des Hasler, who's probably an underappreciated coach, to one of the, most respected coaches of all time, Craig Bellamy. If they lose this 2012 Grand Final and nothing else changes in history, you've got to remember that they don't win another comp until 2017. So they had the 2009 stripped off them, had the 2007 stripped off them. So if you want to take those out, which is up to you, or if you leave them in, it means that they would have gone from 2009 to 2017 without a premiership in that time, which for me, I think that changes the career of Craig Bellamy a little bit.
I think that because in 2011 they made the prelim and Sean Johnson knocked him out. In 2012 they won the comp. And obviously they won the comp. That's all they have to do.
Yep.
But if you take that out, which is a little unfair, but just say we had to, hypothetical point. People forget how shit the Storm were in 2014. And, shit, they still made the finals. But, like, for the Storm.
For the Storm standards.
For the Storm standard, I think they came 7th. And they got knocked out week 1 by the Dogs.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I think I've heard Cam Smith talk about, or maybe it was Bellamy, one of them talk about how after that season, like, everything changed for him.
Yeah.
Because they made the prelims in 2015 and Thurston knocked him out, and then in 2016 they made the grand final, slowly came back. But if you take out that 2012 year, then they've had I reckon that little period there gets a little bit more highlighted than what we do, because it's very unfair, because it's a better run than any other team in the NRL. Like, it's crazy. But if we're talking just from Storm, there'll be that little period there where we're like, okay, the Storm might not have been dominant for 15 years. They were actually dominant in that part, and they had a little bit of a lull, and then they came back strong from 2015 onwards. But again, it's a big what if, because it didn't happen.
Huge what if, yeah. But I agree with you, mate. I think people, and as you said, after that 2014 season, the Melbourne Storm, they came back with a completely different attitude.
Yeah.
They lost the 2016 Grand Final, and then they came back a different team again in 2017 when they said, we're not afraid to make mistakes now. We're going to throw the ball around. And I always argue, mate, that 2017 Melbourne Storm side, I would put it up against your 90s Canberra Raiders, your 90s Brisbane Broncos, your 80s Parramatta Eels. I thought just for an individual team, and I think we forget how good that team was because they played the Cowboys without Thurston in the Grand Final. They absolutely gave it to them. But that team was fucking tremendous. I think that was when you had all those big three sort of at their peak to some extent. They were incredible.
That, I agree. I've always said it as well. I started watching footy when South came back in 2002, and that's the best side I've seen.
Yeah.
No doubt. I reckon they'd beat any other grand final team, because it was just, not only it was such a good team, they were all just so on that year. It was just absolute and utter domination. And
as you just said it perfectly, they were all on. It wasn't that year. It wasn't like either Slater, Cronk, or Smith was the best on the field, and one of them will be okay. All year it was like all three of them were the best on the field.
Who was the best in the grand final? Did you have money on it?
Yeah, did I have fucking... I'll tell you a story.
I know, I've heard it, but say it again.
Fucking heartbreaking shit here. It's my mate's favourite story of all time. We're sitting there. I had a stack of money on Cameron Smith for a Clive, as I did every year for 15 fucking years. Can't believe he never won. It's cost me a mozza. But anyway, Cameron Smith, we finished that grand final. He is looking like an absolute certainty, in my opinion. The only thing I thought was, my only worry is that Billy Slater, the narrative of him coming back from injury, and he had a good game, don't get me wrong.
And he scored that try as well.
Scored that try. But Cameron Smith was the best player on the field by far and a fucking way. 100%. Also, the grand final before that, he made 70 tackles and no one talks about it. I'm sitting there in the stands with my mates, and me being the rugby league nerd I am, I'll never forget when they announced who the winner was. They said the Clive Churchill medal, it's his second. And as soon as he said that, me being the rugby league fucking nerd I am, I straight away went, fuck, it's Billy Slater. And I just yelled, I went, fuck. And obviously my mates around me didn't work it out as quick as I did that a second Clive meant it wasn't Cameron Smith. And then they announced it. And then I remember I was sitting on the train after and one of the boys goes, how did you know it wasn't him? And I said, because he said he's second. And they went, when did he win his first? I said, fucking 2009. I knew it straight away. Cost me a mozza. Cost me an absolute fucking mozza.
In fairness, I was at that game as well. And I thought, I didn't have any money on it, but I thought the exact same thing. I'm like, Smith's won this by a mile.
Mate, I would get on him for the Clive every year in about June.
Oh, really?
And I would ride it all the way, and we'd get to grand final day, and he'd be at $3, and I had him at 14s, and I was just sitting there going, how fucking good. He's going to shit in here. He didn't get it that year. How on earth he didn't get it in with all due respect to Ryan Pappenhausen, who once again had a great game, but that's 2 times I've been fucking fisted by the Melbourne Storm fullback when I thought Cameron Smith was the best on the field. That's another one, 2020. We get to the end of that game. You know what Cameron Smith was at for the Clive Churchill?
What's that?
$1.04.
Oh, my God.
They gave it to Pappy. They paid out at halftime on sports.
So I got a story. This isn't me. This is my mate. It's not a bad story. I won't say his name, but he's one of my really, really good mates. He had money on Smith. He put money on Smith to win the Clive early in the year, like good odds. And then I think before the game, he did another bet on Paps.
Yeah.
So he won both.
Yeah.
He won both bets. They were obviously, the reason I don't say his name is because they were with different bookmakers. So I don't think that's legal. But yeah, he won. He won. I mean, it's their fault. They fucking paid out.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
It was interesting that year. I'll never forget the guy, my best mate I was watching that grand final with. We got on because the AFL grand final was the day before.
Yep.
And we were away for the weekend. So we got on Dusty into Cam Smith, Dusty Martin for Richmond. And Dusty won it. And then they paid out on Cam Smith. Now on Sportsbet, they were offering, there was a special on it.
Yeah.
So essentially it was the exact same price as if you went to Clive Churchill, Norm Smith. Is that what it's called?
No, yeah, pretty sure. Norm Smith.
Yeah, if you went to both of those and you put them in together, it was the same price as that, but they just bundled it in one for you.
Yeah.
And I remember I got on the bundle one, and my mate went. He didn't see the bundle option, so he went to both options and multied them together. Yeah. And for whatever reason, because Sportsbet paid out Cameron Smith, they only paid out the bundle one, not the two.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was that was about 3.5 hours watching him argue with everyone at fucking Sportsbet over the phone to get a few K out of that. It was a good little giggle. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Back to Craig Bellamy before I wallow in more of my shit. Honestly, it was one of the great moments of my life when Cameron Smith retired because I sort of went, it's over. I don't have to do it anymore. I'm done. Craig Bellamy, if he didn't win this premiership, I think we do look back on his career a little bit differently. It's a long stretch without a premiership. It's obviously one less that he had as well. I think
as well because I think the 2012 premiership kind of takes a bit of the, not gloss, obviously it wasn't gloss, but it kind of takes away from the ones that they stripped.
Yeah.
So if he didn't win that, then it's kind of his whole first half of his career.
It closes the door.
Yeah,
exactly. It closes the door on the salary cap drama. And as much as, when you go and have a look at the 2009 side compared to this team, it's completely different. But I feel like if they didn't win a comp until 2017, it's not like in 2017 we would have said, they've closed the door on the salary cap drama. It's it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, no
It's 10 years ago. This, and for me, I don't think I'd look at 2017 and go, fuck, they had everything taken off them, rightly so, and they climbed the mountain again.
No, because they would have lost 2 prelims and lost 2 grand finals.
Whereas 2012, it was they had everything taken off them, then within 2 seasons that they were back at the very top. So I think when you look at Cameron Smith, Cooper Cronk, Billy Slater, I think that if you take this grand final away, I don't think it'd drop them a heap, but it would definitely drop their legacy a little bit. Probably the one out of all of them, it's probably Cooper Cronk, mate. He obviously won the Clive Churchill medal.
Yeah, true.
So if you take that out of his resume, then it becomes very interesting. Matty, can you...
Although...
Yep.
Even though Cronk's a Storm player, his legacy was his last 2 years at the Roosters, I would say. So it would take it away, but not enough to even blink.
Yeah, fair. It is. I was actually just having a look. It's interesting too, and I know that it's not quite the same. You know how I said that Ben Barber, he could have potentially won the Dally M medal and the Clive in the same year?
Yeah.
It is interesting that Cooper, he won the Clive in 2012. He then won the Dally M 2013. So there was a period of a week or so where he was holding both of them at the same time, different years. Jack Whiten did the same thing a couple of years ago, but it's not the same as what Jonathan Thurston did, winning it in the same season. No. That's fucking incredible. Unbelievable stuff. But yeah, I think it would have had a huge impact on the Melbourne Storm and a lot of those players, coaches, everyone. Also a lot of guys in that team that you look back on now that that was probably their big opportunity. Guys like, Brian Norrie, Jesse Bromwich, Kev Proctor, Ryan Hoffman. He was obviously part of the team that had a heap of ones stripped off them. Todd Lowry, Ryan Hinchcliffe, the Melbourne Storm fucking champion.
Yeah.
So yeah, plenty to look into there with the Melbourne Storm. Matty, how long have we been going for?
45 minutes.
Good God. All right. Should we move into 2014?
Yes, gladly.
Now, 2014, the Bunnies, they win this grand final 30-6, which, a big scoreline, 24 points gave it to them. I remember being at this game, and at halftime, it was 6-0. I remember thinking, fuck, this is close. South Sydney are the better team, but fuck, this is close. Then we come out in the second half, and T-Rex scores, Matty. You must have been a little bit nervous.
I'll give you a breakdown because I've watched this game 100 times. So the first play of the game is when the broken cheeky bird happens, but the first 20 minutes of that game, South are absolutely dominating. Like, in attack, in defense, everything. Only got one try out of it. We got a disallowed try and a try to AJ. But then in the 20-minute to 40-minute period is when the Bulldogs start clawing back. That's when, Josh Reynolds kicks a 40-20. They don't score a try, but they build a little bit of pressure and the sting is taken out. So at halftime, I remember thinking, we fucking dominated that first 20 minutes. And it's not like the Bulldogs dominated South's next 20, but I remember thinking, fuck, I wish we could have been up by a bit more. And then for T-Rex to score right after halftime, I started thinking, oh no, like, fuck me dead. This is not happening because, they'd choked in the prelim the year before. They'd lost the prelim the year before that. But then, around the 50th, 55th, 60th minute is when I think George Burgess scored his try. Then we get a penalty goal attempt. Adam Reynolds misses. It's 40 out. Gets another penalty goal attempt, like in the exact same spot, like 5 minutes later. Kicks it, and then went bang, bang, bang from there. And it was kind of the theme of how South won games that year. If you look back, I'm pretty sure they only won 3 games all year. Now you have to do your own research on this, but I'm pretty sure they only won 3 games by 1-12. Like it was all 13 plus that year, and it was always never a fucking blowout from minute one. It was always like that was the theme of the year, and it was kind of a true reflection on South that year. The first 60 minutes, their fullbacks the Rabbitohs fullback would really like try and take it out of you, and then our great attacking players would blow it away at the end. It's the true reflection of the forwards pick who wins, the backs by how much that whole year and that whole game. So yeah, to answer your question, I was very, very nervous up until about the 74th minute.
What was the what was the try that really started to turn it for you?
The George Burgess try.
Yeah.
So it was that.
Was that the second try?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at that point it was 6-all or 6-8, I think. I can't remember if the penalty goal was before or after. But yeah, so that Burgess try, I think that made it 14-6. And then Somiava scored in the corner to make it 18-6, and then Reynolds kicked the goal, and that really was the winner. But obviously, being the pessimist, I still didn't believe we'd won until Reynolds scored after that.
Underrated try, that one.
That's
a cracker.
Like, yeah, so Adam Reynolds puts a kick in. Chris McQueen, who I will slide into his DMs very shortly.
He replied to you last night. How good.
Oh, that was so funny. Leaps up, gives it to Inglis, who just puts this crazy kick in, and then it just bounces perfectly. I think it was AJ might have ran past it, and then Sommy scores in the corner.
The bounce of a football sometimes. I reckon that's one of the more unbelievable bounces of football.
So me and my mates call that a Queensland bounce. So when it bounces...
Love that, and stealing it.
Yeah, when it bounces in your favour, it's a Queensland bounce.
Yeah, absolutely love that. Now, we'll come back to the Bunnies in a second.
Yep.
We were going to talk about Canterbury, then I handed the mic to Matty, a mistake I make on many occasions. But there's plenty to talk about with that South side, so we'll get into a minute. But the Canterbury side, obviously a lot of players that were in that 2012 team. So you guys like James Graham, Josh Jackson, Greg Eastwood, Tolman, these sort of guys that we don't need to repeat ourselves on. But even more to my point of 2012 that we would remember that to be one of the great packs.
Yep.
If this team wins against, your Burgess boys, your Johnny Suttons, Ben Tells, these sort of guys, I genuinely think we remember the 2014 Dogs as one of the best sides. And my reasoning why, their spine. Sam Perrott was their fullback. Love Sam Perrott, great player. He was a winger.
Yeah, definitely like a great winger.
A fucking sensational winger, but he was a winger.
Yep.
I would argue that if Sam Perrott was in the South Sydney Rabbitohs team, he might have been their third choice fullback.
He probably wouldn't have even made the team. We might have made it at that point over Johnston, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's with all due respect to Sam Perrott, a brilliant player, but he was a winger playing fullback.
And like when you look at who he's against at fullback,
100%, one of the greatest of all time.
It's just not fair.
It's a complete mismatch.
Yeah.
Josh Reynolds at 6, Trent Hodgkinson at 7. Obviously, two guys that went into the Origin arena and played incredibly well, got the job done, won it for the Blues. There was other guys in that team that were in absolute career best form, obviously. But Josh Reynolds and Trent Hodgkinson, once again, if you were to stack up all the players that have been in grand finals for the last 20 years, once again, I don't think they would be in the top 50%. Is that fair, Matty?
Yeah, probably. Like, obviously, they had that, as you said, that great period. And, I can never speak ill of them because they were the ones that broke the drought for us. But you're right. Like, when it comes to, like, they only had a couple of good years together. So,
yeah.
You're right.
And I mean, outside of Josh Reynolds and just his absolute ticker, name me one thing that Josh Reynolds or Trent Hodgkinson did better than Luke Keary and Adam Reynolds.
Yeah.
They were just goers, out and out goers, which is what Canterbury's all about. And then the hooker, Mozambique, a halfback.
Well, that was his first game of hooker in the NRL.
Yeah, playing in a grand final because obviously this is the grand final where Mick Ennis and Isaac Luke, neither of them were playing in this game.
Yeah.
So when you consider Sam Perrott, a winger at fullback, Reynolds and Hodgkinson in the halves, and then Mozambique playing his first ever game at hooker.
And he played his next game at hooker in 2017. So,
and then that's just about it until a few years later, eh?
Yeah, he played like one random game in 2020 and a couple of random games last year for the Dragons, but the Dragons were obviously a bit of a shit show this year.
So I think that when you consider that spine, I think when you consider what the forward pack did of Tolman, James Graham, Josh Jackson, Tony Williams, Greg Eastwood, Tim Brown, Finucane, Clemmer, Pritchard was their bench.
What a great bench.
I reckon that we would look at this side similar to how we sort of look at the 2004 Dogs if they won this grand final because, and even when you look at that 2004 Dogs side, they had Luke Patton, who was a tremendous player. They had Braithen Astor, who was, an Australian rep at that point. Brent Sherwin, who didn't play rep football, to be fair, but was incredibly successful throughout his career. So I really do think that this 2014 Dog side would be put right up there on a pedestal as one of the better forward sides, one of the better forward packs that we've seen in the NRL. Mate, I know there's one guy that you want to talk about in this Bulldogs side that's been pretty relevant the last few weeks, obviously playing for Samoa in the World Cup, Timmy Laffey.
You ask any Bulldogs fan, and they will rave about Tim Laffey, not just in this grand final, but just his time at the club. And I think he was out and out the best player for the Bulldogs this day. Not with the ball, just in defence. Like, South were just attacking from left, right, and centre, and he was like, a couple of Dogs had a bit of an average game, but he was one of them that really stood up for the Dogs. And I remember sitting in the stands thinking, fuck, Laffey shut another one down. And it's just one of those guys that you'll never remember because they didn't win the game. But if they did win the game, you know what? He wouldn't have got the Clive Churchill because they don't give it to a centre that defended well. But he was so good this game. And I remember around this time, I had friends who were Bulldogs fans who were huge fans, like really, really rated Timmy Laffey. So, yeah, I think he's one of the true forgotten men out of this team.
And just on top of him, the entire backline, no one in that backline ever won a premiership. Sam Perrott, Corey Thompson, Josh Morris, Tim Laffey, Mitch Brown, Josh Reynolds, Trent Hodgkinson.
Wow.
Tell you what, I would have given my right fucking arm to see Corey Thompson win a grand final. I love that guy.
Me too. Fire out.
Sam Perrott as well. We spoke about him earlier. I don't know if you want to call him a journeyman or whatever, but he was just always such a solid footballer who always did a job in every single team he was ever in. Unlucky to never win a comp. We already spoke about it, that bench. I can't get over it, mate. Finucane, Clemmer, Pritchard.
Wow, Sam Perrott lost 3 grand finals.
What did he lose? 2010 with the Roosters?
Yeah.
And then
12.
the 2 with Canterbury?
Yeah.
Wow.
Poor bloke. He was good. I liked Sammy Perry a lot.
Yeah, very good player, Sammy. He had a younger brother, Lloyd, who looked like he was going to be very talented as well. Yeah,
you're right. This Dogs bench, like, because I remember, like, Souths were pretty much unlosable that day just because of the form they were in. But if you compare the benches, like, if you look back with the benefit of hindsight, the Bulldogs bench is way better.
I was just about to say, I thought you were about to say they're about even. I thought you were going to get a bit South Sydney on me.
No,
but yeah,
way better.
The Canterbury one is definitely better. Yeah, unbelievable for the Bulldogs. And like we've already sort of spoken about Desi Hasler and how he would have been remembered and whatnot. And I would argue that if Josh Reynolds wins either of these grand finals, he's a one club 300 game player, I reckon.
Yeah, I wish he was anyway.
He should be anyway, you're right. But I don't think there's any hope in hell that he leaves. You've also got to remember the timing of this. 2014, midway through the year, these two had won the State of Origin together. So if they then would have backed it up with a premiership victory, I don't know, does that buy them a year, 2 years as State of Origin halves?
Yeah, probably. I don't remember the ins and outs because we looked it up earlier and Hodkinson played the next year, Josh Reynolds didn't. I don't remember if there was injuries or whatnot, but yeah. I don't know though, because obviously 2015 game 3 we got pumped by 50, so maybe that was a bit of a clean out. But you're right, if they were premiership winning halves, they probably would have been looked on more favourably for future. For sure.
Yeah, the other one here that would have been interesting would have been T-Rex, Tony Williams. If he would have won this grand final, that would have been his second premiership with Des Hasler at a second club.
That's right.
Which would have been a nice.
Forgetting he played for Manly.
Yeah. He won a comp. Was he on the wing or was he coming off the bench at that point?
I would say bench, but I will have a look.
I think he was, I think you're right. I think he was coming off the bench originally in, what was that, 2000?
No, he was second row in 2011.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And that was in 2011, was it? Yeah, second row.
2011.
Yeah, but if you have a look through that year, he started on the bench in just about every game until the final started. Then he brought him into the starting side.
That's right. Because was that the year he played for Australia?
Yes, I think it was.
So yeah, that was the year where he just went.
Came off the bench for the Kangaroos. Yeah.
But you're right about this forward pack, this Bulldogs forward pack. I can't get over it either.
It's fierce.
Let me. I know we've said it 100 times, but let me read it out again. Aiden Tolman, James Graham, Sun front rowers. Josh Jackson, T-Rex, and Greg Eastwood. Fuck. How good was Greg Eastwood? I'm pretty sure, was 2014 the year Greg Eastwood won player of the tournament? I think he did.
Possibly.
Yeah, so Greg Eastwood was in like crazy form. And then Tim Brown, Finucane, Clemmer and Pritchard on the bench. Just insane.
Remind me to tell you a story about Greg Eastwood later.
All right, sweet.
Cracker. Yeah, Canterbury side, unbelievable. Let's move to the other side of the park. And I'll ask you off the bat.
Yep.
If Greg Inglis doesn't win a premiership with South Sydney, where does it leave his career?
Yeah. Honestly, it wouldn't be looked as favourably because him and Burgess were the face of that premiership, and that's how they're remembered. So it's extremely hard to look back and try and take that part of history out because that was the most important part of history in Greg Inglis's South Sydney Rabbitohs career. So if we lost that grand final, that would have been 2 prelims, a GF loss. When did he retire? 2019?
2019, yep.
So another prelim loss in 2018 as well because he retired after round 2, I'm pretty sure.
And it's crazy to consider, mate, that a guy that wins 2 premierships and a Clive Churchill medal at Melbourne, granted, stripped off them, remember it however you want to remember it, but it's crazy that when you win a Clive and you win 2 comps at one club, that those premierships aren't really remembered as your premierships.
No.
Like at the end of the day, they were Billy Slater, Cooper Cronk, Cameron Smith.
Yeah.
It was their team, whereas fast forward to 2014, and shout out to Greg, like, fuck, he took a punt going to South Sydney.
He came to South and we'd made the top 8 once in, I'm pretty sure, his entire life.
Yeah. And he had the offer to go up to the Brisbane Broncos, which looks like it was done and dusted to play alongside Darren Lockyer and to be the next guy after him. Went to South Sydney and the rest is history. 4 years later, wins that premiership. Obviously has that moment in the grand final where does the goanna. And for me, like, when I think Greg Inglis, as much as he did amazing things at Melbourne, did amazing things in Origin, I'd like to forget the Origin moments, but it's that goanna that try that stands out. And it wasn't even a deciding try. It was just
the game
full
was
stop
over,
at the end of a premiership.
And
But fuck, it's a
and
moment.
just the fact that like I think full shout out to like whoever was doing the producing that day, because they changed and switched that camera at the perfect time, because you just see him looking dead into the camera with red and green just behind him. It gives me, I'm literally got goosebumps right now.
Yeah, I reckon that producer would have got a few pats on the back just
For
it's an like for that guy and his skill set.
Yeah.
That's his fucking Super Bowl and he nailed it.
That's his Greg Inglis go in a moment.
Yeah, that's fucking huge. So I think if you take that premiership away from Greg, and I think the other thing that we forget too is that after that premiership, Greg only plays about another 60 odd games of first grade.
Yeah.
Still has some great moments and everything in there, but if you take out that premiership, it's remembered very differently.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Another one I want to ask you about is Adam Reynolds.
Yeah.
I think he's been one of the best halfbacks in this competition for a very long time. You can talk about his record when he was at South. What did he go to 8 prelims or something, 7 or something?
I don't want to count.
Yeah, I don't want to count, but it is like as much as for you, it must hurt. Like
2012, 2013, 2014, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. So
7?
That's 7 prelims, won 2 of them. Yeah.
Wow.
But in 2012, and like I'm not taking anything away from the Bulldogs, but South were up 8-4, and he went off with a hamstring injury.
And you completely fell into a fucking heap.
Yeah, it was terrible.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And as Jackson said the other day, I think it's a great point that people remember premiership winners, but they don't appreciate getting to a grand final, which I completely agree with.
100%.
But mate, let's not sit here and pretend like getting to a prelim's easy either. Like it's another thing that to get to 7 in what was that 7 in a row or 7 in 8 years or
Nah, so from 2012 to 2021, so 10 years.
10 years.
7 in 10.
Wow. Fuck. That's
Just
impressive.
another thing about that. So Reynolds, a lot of these South boys actually, it was a pretty young team. If they won that premiership, and that was like a monkey off the back.
Yeah.
Like no one ever was like to Reynolds ever again, oh, he's good, but he hasn't won a premiership. Not only that, South hadn't won a premiership in 43 years. So that 2015, Adam Reynolds haven't won a premiership in 44 years. Adam Reynolds haven't won a premiership in 45 years. And that would have gone on, and it still would have gone on. It would still be going on now.
Yeah, and you made a good point there about them being a young side. People forget, Adam Reynolds was the Rookie of the Year in 2012.
Yeah.
He won the comp in 2014. His halves partner, Luke Keary, was that his first, like he didn't start the season. He
was meant to, but I think he did his pec in the 9s.
Yeah.
So then he come back in round 16. So he was always meant to be the 5'8" that year. But he did his pec in the 9s, came back about round 16, I'm going to say. And
yeah, round 17 it is. Yeah, fuck.
Yeah.
Good work, Matty. But yeah, it's great. And I mean, from the moment he comes back in, he plays 12 games, they win 9 of them.
Yeah. And then Johnny Sutton gets to go to his good position.
Which I think is, I don't think Johnny Sutton gets enough credit for that. Obviously moving, played 5'8", and they were doing well. And for a guy like him who's, at that point he probably wasn't an absolute legend of the club. He was a great player. But for him to be in this side for so long and then move back to the back row to allow... Oh, sorry. I thought... It says here that he played 5'8" in the grand final, John Sutton.
No, he didn't. No way. Not a chance.
Yeah, that's weird. It says 5'8", but he's in 12, Sorry. Back to my point. I was right. Huge for him to move from 5'8" back into the back row to let this other kid come back in and just take control of this side with Adam Reynolds. It's and it makes it even more impressive when you consider that Luke Keary had played 20-odd games. Adam Reynolds was in his 3rd year of first grade, and they lost their hooker going into the grand final.
Wow, sorry to cut you off. I'm just looking. He was out from round 21 to 25. I can't remember why. I think he must have been injured. He played his first game of the year in the second row in the first week of finals. So he played lock and 5'8", pretty much 5'8" the whole year. Played a couple of games of lock here and there. And then I actually remember him talking about it because after like 2 games, he's like, nah, I'm too gassed in the middle. So he played his first game at second row in week 1 of the finals. So he played 3 games of second row that year.
Yeah, wow.
I actually didn't even know that.
Yeah, I didn't realise that either.
Where was he from round 21 to 26? Who knows? I do.
So who was playing 5'8" for you?
When?
In the period when John Sutton was injured and
So Kiri was back by then.
Kira was back by then, was he?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Crazy. And like plenty of other like people forget that was that Dylan Walker's second year? First year, and
AJ's first year. I tell you what, so it's funny how we're like looking back. What if Greg Inglis didn't have that premiership? What if so-and-so didn't have that premiership? Nathan Merritt didn't have that premiership. And that is one of the saddest things, probably the saddest thing ever for South fans.
Mate, I just opened up the team list from about round 14 or something and I saw his name and my heart just dropped. It's fucking brutal how it played out for Nathan Merritt, who...
He deserved the premiership just as much as John Sutton did.
Oh, mate. I think people need to sort of go back and have a look at the career of Nathan Merritt to realise, respectfulully to you, Matty, that South Sydney side that he was in, they were a fucking...
They were terrible.
Basket case.
They were terrible.
Were awful. And he, 2014, when you win the comp, he only scored 2 tries that year. So before that, he scored 152 tries. He spent a couple of years at the Sharks. He scored a grand total of 8 tries in those years. So he scored 145 tries for an underachieving South Sydney side that had made the finals 3 to 4 times during that period, maybe?
2007, 2012, 2013, 2014.
Yeah, 4 times. 3 times before 2014.
So also, and like, I've got into like pub arguments about AJ versus Merritt, and I hate it. I hate it so much because like AJ is such a freak.
Pick your favourite child.
Yeah, I know, it seriously is. AJ's like obviously like such a freak and like but like if you want to say AJ, that's completely fine. But like I always say, just don't forget though that Nathan Merritt wasn't playing with Inglis, with Reynolds. Like he was playing. He got 20-something tries in 2006, top of the fucking league for tries, and the Rabbitohs won 3 games that year. Like it's crazy. Like I think they both deserve to stand alongside each other.
Yeah, for sure. Tremendous player. So some other guys that in this South Sydney team that I absolutely loved. Jason Clark.
Oh, Marsland boy.
Yeah, Marsland boy, one of the greats. Another one, and I still to this day reckon he's one of the nicest guys I've ever met, Kyle Turner.
Yeah, he's great.
Champion fella. Not sure what he's doing now. I know he was working for Souths a couple of years. He was at a clinic at a school that I was working at. I've never seen someone that had more time for every single kid that was there, Kyle Turner. He was
just a
fucking
good,
tremendous.
honest country kid.
Yeah, he was the best. Now, if the Rabbitohs don't win this grand final, Michael Maguire, does he just become one of the other coaches in the heap of guys that didn't win a comp, couldn't win a comp?
Well, yeah, because, I mean, Seibold, it's hard to say Wayne because Wayne's Wayne, but like Seibold went to a prelim, no one even remembers it. So he probably would have got punted a little earlier as well because South kind of fell off a cliff a little bit when Burgess left, and I think the juice got squeezed out of the orange a bit. Whoever's fault that was, I don't know. But it was time to move on from Madge as much as Madge has done. But if he got moved, if he hadn't won a comp, he probably wouldn't have got as much time there.
For sure. And as you said, I think you put it perfectly there, juice squeezed out of the orange or whatever you said.
Yeah.
You just came back after that and you were just flat, weren't you?
Yeah, it was disappointing.
And obviously you came back without Sam Burgess as well, who I know is one of your favourite players of all time.
Yep.
If not your favourite.
I think Benny Teo left as well.
What a season for Benny Teo.
And like obviously his big moment was that prelim when he scored that try and he was the best player on the field by a mile. That was his first game back after 5 weeks because he got done, I think it was a chicken wing tackle or something. Yeah. So that was his first game back after a 5-week suspension. He came on the field, gave away a penalty, and it was the dumbest penalty ever. It was like I think he threw up James Maloney or something.
But it set the tone.
Yeah, it set the tone.
Yes.
But it's funny. So he gave away the penalty on his first touch. Not even his first touch. He came on the field and did it. And Sam Burgess blew up at him. And Benny Teo looked at him and said, "Fuck off, I'm here for you today," or something like that. And apparently like fired up Sam Burgess and the rest of the team.
Have you heard Sam talk about that in the, I think it was an interview he did with Matty Johns.
Yeah. Go back and listen.
He said that he blew up at him and he turned around and said that and he just went, fuck, no one's ever said that to me.
Yeah.
Oh. It just sort of stunned him. And everyone talks about the try that he scored, which was a tremendous try. He was never going to be stopped in that moment. But the moment that he picked up James Maloney and just threw him on the ground just to set the standard for the next 60 minutes, whatever it was that the game where the Roosters halfback got into them about choking.
Yeah, so Pierce, it was
Yeah.
12-0, so they scored.
I don't know why I didn't say his name then. Yeah.
They scored 2 tries. And then remember the year before, South were up 14-0, choked. The year before that, blah, blah, blah. Mitch was like, stop choking, stop choking, stop choking. Allegedly, this is what you know, the old tale. Who knows? It could have been the old "you dropped the World Cup" yarn.
I'm pretty sure you can see it on the. I remember seeing it
really?
live, and I remember he sort of said it in the direction of Isaac Luke, and I sort of thought, don't know about it, Mitch. Don't know about it.
But then I think South scored 32 unanswered points.
Yeah.
After that,
Which also you've got to throw in the other layer to that Roosters team, they were going for back-to-back premierships too.
yep.
They won in 2013. So for South to come back in that game, and especially, and this is, you said to me earlier that when South won that game against the Roosters, that it was sort of like that was almost your grand final.
Grand final, yeah,
Sometimes that can be the worst thing for you, though.
for sure.
So that was the one thing that had me nervous coming into this game against Canterbury, that it was perfect for Des Hasler. It was his dream situation.
Yeah.
You just come off the high of beating the Chooks, a lot of emotion in it. Everyone's talking South Sydney, GI, all these Burgess, all these guys. So it was a tremendous win. Sam Burgess, he left at the end of this. We talk about moments that make great players, and we were talking to Jackson about it the other day, and he was saying that he thought a lot of middle forwards would become immortals, and I sort of said, I don't think they will, simply because they don't have enough opportunities to own huge moments. Sam Burgess' first moment of this game comes head-to-head with James Graham, like two magnets coming at each other. He gets man of the match in this game. He gets carried off, broken cheekbone, very Johnny Sattler sort of vibes from 1970, I think it was.
Yeah.
Moments define players, and this is the moment that defines Sam Burgess. I think that if you take this moment out of it, if he doesn't win this grand final, I think we look back on his career very differently, and I don't think he's the automatic answer to the best import ever, in my opinion.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, it's so, again, like, obviously disclaimer. It's just, it's so hard to be hypothetical when, like, it's so hard to take away that moment from him when he fucking went out there and did it. But again, let's just pretend it didn't happen. You're totally right. He's still one of the best players ever to put on that red and green jumper. One of the best players from England to come over. But if you didn't have that moment, which is what we define people then who knows? I totally agree. We probably don't look at him as an automatic, number one.
Yeah, and I mean, fuck. Like, imagine if that injury was any worse and he wasn't able to play out that game.
He would have had to have lost both of his limbs, I reckon, to walk off that field. But yeah, you're right. Like, that would have been devastating. Because don't forget, he was leaving after that game. And he announced that at the start of the year. So, like, it was just that would have been absolutely devastating. It would have been just as devastating as Isaac Luke missing out, which still burns me, and still it pisses me off. But yeah, it would have been just as bad as that.
Fuck, that was a crazy week leading up to that grand final.
Because you had that, and then
the week was bigger than the game, I thought.
Oh, for sure, because you got the South making their first grand final. You've got the Dogs South rivalry. Like, I think it was the first. Oh, you had the grand final last year, but like it was the most. Like, it was the Sydney Grand Final, so it was... I think it's still the most watched Grand Final, something like that. It's still the most highest crowd since they took away the wings. So it was like 83,833 or something. Then you had Ennis miss out. You had Isaac Luke suspended. Then he had to go to judiciary, so he had all that. Burgess, like the battle of Burgess versus Graham. Whew.
And there was, as much as South were the favourites, Canterbury had the grand final experience from 2 years as well. So there was things. I still remember, mate, the Newmarket Hotel for that game, owned by a Greek family, a lot of Bulldogs fans, and then in the heart of South Sydney, that place was fucking on fire that night. That was ridiculous.
How good's the Newmarket when you drive past and it's got "This is South Sydney" sign on it? I just look at it and go, oh, yes, it is.
Yeah, it's unreal. Mate, anything else you want to throw in?
Yes, just on Burgess.
Yeah.
I could talk about him all day. But I generally, not anymore, because like we got this and I'd like to talk to you and Den and stuff during games. But back in the day, I used to turn my phone off during games because I didn't want any fucking cunt to distract me. So I turned my phone off before the game. So I didn't know Burgess broke his face until
You didn't know?
till half time. So I turned my phone back on to just get some updates. And my mate Andre texted me saying, Burgess broke his fucking cheek. Like, I didn't know it was first minute either. And I remember just showing my mate Scott Beer Camel. And I was like, bro. And he's like, what the fuck? And it just fired the both of us up. It's fucking so good.
Like, whenever you're out of those, if you haven't been out there, as much as you turn your phone off, there's a good chance, like, you never get any reception out there.
Nah, not
because there's
anymore.
so many people. And I remember I was at that game as well, and I remember my old man, it used to kill me. We used to go to the grand final every year, and as the game would start, he'd put his headphones in and he'd listen to the call on the radio. So I'd like go and say something. He couldn't hear a fucking word I was saying, but I'll never forget during that game after that when they were looking at Sam and everything, he kept playing. I was the same. I had no idea. And I remember Dad goes, apparently he's just broken part of his face. And I just sort of went,
Still gives me goosebumps.
they must be speculating. He's still out there. That can't be true.
Yeah.
And then to find out it was true after, unbelievable.
Also, just a little trick. You're right. There's never any reception at ANZ Stadium. So if you've lasted this long, you get a little hack. So what you do is you go your settings up, go to mobile and change it from 4G to 3G or 5G to 3G, because you never get reception because it's usually at halftime at Origin as well because everyone's on their phone. That's why you can't get reception, because everyone's on the network. So if you change it to 3G, you're the only one in the stadium on 3G and it always works. It's a hack I've been doing for years. So if you've listened to the podcast
Matty,
this
how
long,
good's that?
if you listen to the podcast this long, then you deserve a little hack.
Oh, there you go, listeners. Put that one in your swag. I love that. Anything else you want to throw in there, mate, on this South Sydney team? I think the other one, we spoke about him, but obviously Luke Keary goes on to win back-to-back premierships, but 2 premierships is incredible. Having that third, that's something really special though, isn't it?
Yeah, even not as much because he wasn't really part of the team as much as Keary was, but like Coruscant as well. Like he's won 3. I think the biggest thing for South fans would be like growing up, all it was is you never seen your team win a comp. You never seen your team win a comp. Be like Para now. You never seen your team win a comp. It'd still be like that now, which would be so frustrating, especially after being 2 grand finals.
Well, that was going to be my next question to you. Would you have won a comp if you didn't win in 2014, you think?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Because Burgess left. He was leaving no matter what. And I don't see why we would have been any more hungry in 2018. Like the comp was 5 years gone then. So I wouldn't think so. Nah.
Fuck, imagine if you didn't win that comp and then you had to watch Keary win 2 a couple of years later. The Chooks. Fucking hell.
Yeah. Because he won it with us, he can have him. He can win as many as you want with Roosters. You won your first time with us, and I'm forever indebted to you, Luke. So
yeah, incredible stuff. So guys, we're going to do a few more of these. We're not sure who will do it. If you've got any ideas, if you want to, send us a message on Instagram or leave it in the YouTube comments to have a look at another team if they potentially won a grand final that they lost, how it would change the history of rugby league, the history of certain careers. We are very, very open. There's obviously a lot of teams that won a grand final and then the next year they lost and they could have gone back to back. A number of teams that are in that sort of boat that could have changed history, obviously. So any that you want us to do, let us know and we'll be able to get stuck into those. But we'll be back on Wednesday with another episode of the off-season, 6 p.m. as usual, as you guys know. And then on Tuesday and Thursdays, I think it'll be at 3 p.m, we'll be dropping a few more teams going through their 2023 lineups, their best 17s, according to me and Matty. So stay tuned for those. I think we've got Roosters and maybe Souths this week, but we'll see how it plays out. Thanks for joining us once again on the off-season, guys. If you are on the YouTube, please subscribe, like, comment, tell your mates, whatever it might be. I think it's the best off-season content you're going to find. I think a lot of places have sort of closed their doors now for 2023, Matty, so we're going to be pushing through. 2022, sorry.
Why would you close your doors? There's
still footy to talk about.
There's no more important time to talk about footy when there's no footy on.
Yeah, that's what 100%. We'll be here. We'll be in the trenches. So we'll see you next week. Cheers, legends.
See ya.